I'm the president and chair of the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. We're a nonprofit organization here to reform the electoral system throughout the United States. And it's my honor to have a group of fabulous, wonderful individuals here tonight. I'm so humbled that they are here joining us for this panel discussion with various speakers, Larry King, presidential candidates, and we have a special guest at the end. I would like to start with Mr. Thom Hartmann, a radio host, author, former psychotherapist, and entrepreneur, and political commentator. His nationally syndicated radio show, the Thom Hartmann Program, airs on 160 radio stations in the United States and has 2.7 million listeners a week. He is the New York Times bestselling author of 23 books in print in 17 languages on 5 continents. Welcome, Thom.
Thank you. Thank you, Christina.
Pleasure having you here, and it was great meeting you last week, actually, in D.C.
Indeed.
Great. Josh Tolley, well, you've been with us since day one, and
yes.
Thank you so much for coming. You are a talk show host, a speaker, columnist, business behavioral strategist, and author. His talk show, The Josh Tolley Show, provides a show filled with relevant topics, a blunt and logical approach to issues with an entertaining and charismatic personality. I definitely, you're memorable and you're here today, and gosh, your show is growing faster than this gentleman by the name of Glenn Beck, I believe, right?
Well, we kind of, yeah, don't tell him.
Oh no, a little late for that. So
that's the strategy.
So great to have you today, both of you being correspondents with utmost integrity. So I'm again humbled to have you both here today. And Theresa Amato, we go back since 2004.
Sure.
2004. Is a lawyer and public advocate. She is an executive director of Citizens Work and was the national campaign manager and in-house counsel for 2 presidential campaigns. She is the author of Grand Illusion, The Myth of Voter Choice and a Two-Party Tyranny. Theresa, you are a true fighter for reforming the electoral system, making the world a better place, and I thank you for joining us tonight.
Including us.
So we're going to start off, we can jump around with our first speaker this evening. I guess I could introduce her and then let you two just kind of pick her brain and get to know her a little bit better, and all the people watching tonight. Miss Jill Stein. She is a mother, physician, longtime teacher of internal medicine, pioneering environmental health advocate, and the Green Party nominee for president. Her vice presidential running mate is Sherry Honkala. Hope I pronounced that right. Jill Stein, we'll have her come on up.
Well, until we get Jill, I just want to say that the importance of this debate is so significant, especially on the heels of what we've seen last night, when so many people were left with this idea of really only hearing one voice coming out of 2 different people. A debate that truly offers representation from so many other voices is pivotal. So what we're doing tonight is extremely exciting, and I think extremely encouraging as we move through this election process.
Absolutely. I think it's key that Free and Equal Elections Foundation has decided to host an inclusive debate so that we can hear many of the top candidates who are ballot qualified, who have polled in the national polls, be part of the presidential debate discussion. Every 4 years we have a conversation in this country. What's our political discourse? What kind of issues are we going to be talking about? And too often when you just hear the 2 major parties, you hear same or similar positions. You don't get the entire political spectrum. The United States people of the United States don't have a chance to hear some of the other voices that are clearly putting out new ideas and new solutions to the problems that we have in the United States.
I think one of the things that really needs to be mentioned is that Messrs. Obama, or President Obama and Governor Romney, were invited here.
Yes.
And frankly, they should have invited these 4 candidates, and perhaps a few more, to their debate. Our debates in the United States have been so narrow as a consequence of this duopoly, this 2-party duopoly, which is the consequence of an anachronistic constitution. We have one of the oldest democracies in the modern world, and I think it's time to update it.
And that really is an agreement of the 2 parties, and that they work through the Commission on Presidential Debates, which sounds all nice and official, but yet it's a private organization that has wrested control of our national political discourse.
It's a hustle.
Providing free commercial airtime for to tens of millions of Americans, and only inviting based on their criteria, which no third-party candidate or independent has met since Ross Perot in 1992. And so you have a situation where they have not opened up the debates to the other candidates running for president of the United States, and it's this cartel that limits the voices that the American people can hear.
Well, and I
Absolutely.
think that also, while our guest is being mic'd up here, I think one of the things that's really evident is the loss that these two parties are suffering because of their exclusion. I mean, we have almost half of the population that's eligible to vote not going to the polling places because they feel excluded. So the parties themselves are losing as well.
They don't have representation, they don't have a voice representing them, and they're not seeing a candidate that motivates them to go out to the polls and to actually cast a ballot.
Well, my apologies for the error there before with Jill Stein, because you're definitely not Jill Stein.
No, I'm not, but we share many of the same values and the passion for these issues.
Well, you're both kind people, and I am so happy to have you here, Rocky Anderson.
My pleasure.
Yeah, you're the former mayor of Salt Lake City, Utah, and is running as the Justice Party nominee for President of the United States. And your vice presidential running mate is Luis Rodriguez.
Yes.
Yeah, well, welcome.
Thank you. It's
Great
great
to
to be
have
here.
you.
And what an important event this is. I think it's groundbreaking. I think it sets the bar for what we're going to see more of in this country, with the polls showing that the majority of people want to hear from other candidates. They want to see other major candidates. People are leaving the Republican Party and the Democratic Party by the millions. And more people now registered as independents or not affiliated than as either Republicans or Democrats. That ought to tell the corporate-owned media a thing or two in terms of what their audience wants to hear and read and see from them. And it hasn't been happening, but this is helping out a lot tonight.
Well, one of the questions I have for you is, obviously you're running your campaign based on principle, not pandering to a party, because you're not running under one of the two major monikers.
That's why I left the Democratic Party.
Exactly. So knowing that, what are your aspirations through this? Is it to convey a message? Is it to influence the discussion moving on from this point?
That's a great question. Obviously, we didn't think that we were going to win this race, although I think that if we were included in these major party debates, we'd have a great shot at it, because our positions on the issues and my record on the issues, this isn't just something I talk about during a campaign. These are things I've worked on all my adult life. They represent what the majority of people in poll after poll show that they want. Whether it's getting out of Afghanistan, whether it's ending the budget-busting Bush tax cuts, whether it's finally seeing an end to the disastrous failed war on drugs. There is so much that we can get done as Americans, but not if the debate is so constricted as we've seen during these three presidential debates and the vice presidential debate. I mean, what are they arguing about? Who can drill on public lands the most? Who can raise military spending the most? What kinds of arms are we going to send over to Syria to set those poor people up for an absolute bloodbath? Our foreign policy is so belligerent, and the Republican and Democratic parties have been in collusion on this for decades. And we've got to put it to an end, and that's what the American people want to see. So when you say, what are we trying to accomplish? Certainly raising awareness about not only the issues, but about the grand possibilities of the people of this country returning our government to a real democracy, a government of, by, and for the people, rather than this plutocracy where the White House and Congress are up for sale to the highest bidder.
How would you suggest we do that?
Well, I think a major people's movement, a democratic movement. We saw a lot of that happening with the Occupy movement, but we've got great examples in our nation's history. The women's suffrage movement, the civil rights movement, the labor movement. People came together at the grassroots. They weren't just waiting until the next election rolled around to put the right people in office who are going to perform these miracles. We can perform those miracles by taking on the leadership as engaged citizens.
But each of those, I'm sorry. Well, if if I may, if each of those movements, and you can take it back to the Bull Moose Party, or you can take it back, long before that, each of those movements has either infected, influenced, or pushed one of the two major political parties, but they've never shaken this two-party system, which comes out of the way that our Constitution is written. We've got first past the post, winner take all elections. Shouldn't we be looking at things like instant runoff voting, ranked voting, proportional voting?
Of course.
I mean, isn't this really a systemic problem far more than it's a nasty conspiracy between two evil parties?
Well, our electoral system is rotten to the core from front to back.
But it's been a two-party system from 1793.
And these two parties collude to keep alternatives off the ballot. I never knew how bad it was. I read Theresa's amazing book. And that almost convinced me, let's not even try this, but we did. And we have nightmare stories about getting kicked off the ballot, including getting kicked off in Illinois. But we can't let up. And certainly runoff voting would be a great solution. But the parties that are benefiting from the system we have now, they're not going to put it into place. Yeah. So we need that people's movement. We need people belonging to every political party. This can't be partisanship anymore. This should be the people of the United States coming together saying, get the corrupting money out of our government. Let's start abiding by the Constitution and end this imperial presidency that's shredded our Constitution. And let's have an electoral system that makes sense and provides a true democracy for the people of this country.
Rocky, we're out of time, and you're going to have a lot of time during this debate. So I thank you so much for coming, and
thank you.
It's been so great knowing you this past year or so. Actually, we've been talking. So
I appreciate
thank you,
it.
Rocky, for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you. Please. Response, Theresa.
Well, I'm honored he read the book, and he has mentioned a number of the provisions that need to be reformed. And we should also talk and maybe ask Dr. Stein if she's up next, or some of the other candidates about Gary Johnson, nonpartisan administration of elections. What will we do to get media to provide more airtime so that groups don't have to host these debates, that actually they have time on the air to talk? And what are we going to do about the Commission on Presidential Debates? What are we going to do to federalize and make uniform ballot access laws so that it's not difficult, and so that a candidate like Rocky Anderson, who's been a mayor of a city, doesn't have to get kicked off the ballot in order to present his views to the American people?
And I think that's represented tremendously through what we're seeing tonight. These four candidates, the media exposure that this debate has garnished. I mean, we have media from all over the world covering this. And he brought up an interesting point where we're stuck, whether by cause or by default, in this two-party system. And in order to break that, enough people have to realize that if their voice isn't being heard, there are now people out there with options and resources to have those voices heard. Because we didn't have that really until the invention of modern technology, and this is really changing things, as this debate is evidence of.
Social networking, technology, and we have somebody special here at the table now, Gary Johnson. Welcome.
Thank you.
Gary Johnson is a businessman, former governor of New Mexico, and the Libertarian nominee for president. His vice presidential running mate is Judge James Gray of California. I actually met him, really great guy too. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you, and I just want to apologize. I'm about as sick as I've ever been in my entire life, and no, really. I'm sorry, but I wanted to point that out. Just, wow.
But thank you for joining us anyway. So you may have heard some of what Rocky Anderson had to say.
I didn't hear a word.
Okay, so you're a former governor of New Mexico.
Yes.
2 terms.
You were given twice, and you were given a runaround just to not be able to participate in the Republican primary debates.
I think I was very unfairly excluded.
Yes, and so tonight we're having a debate that's opening it up to everyone. What reforms would you suggest for our broken electoral process?
Well, it is what it is. I mean, I have been reality-based my entire life. When two parties become obsolete, it's the duty of other parties to try and supplant those two. So I'm engaged in that process. And I appreciate you having this debate. I mean, it's a great opportunity to voice a difference on really all the issues of the day.
No, your campaign is doing something strategic, and that is going after the voters who were for Ron Paul. Now that Ron Paul's no longer in the running for his party's nomination, a large segment of that voting bloc has moved to you, and it also represents a growing segment of the Republican Party itself. How do you think that's going to play out when we move towards November for your campaign specifically?
Well, you know, we've never targeted anybody, but I do believe that when I was running for president in the Republican Party, I really thought it was going to be hard to marginalize two people on stage talking about the same things, myself and Ron Paul. I didn't find myself marginalized. I found myself very unfairly excluded. What I thought I witnessed was Ron Paul continuing to be marginalized. And in December, I looked into my crystal ball, and I didn't see Ron Paul as the Republican nominee. So where is the voice for what I think is the fastest growing segment of American politics today, the liberty movement? Well, it was going to be the Libertarian nominee for president, and I saw an opportunity to be able to get that nomination and participated maybe in 12 state conventions where there were 12 debates with 12 libertarian candidates running for president of the United States.
How do you define the commons, and what is the government's role relative to the commons?
Now, when you say commons, what do you mean?
Those things we own in common.
Well, I think that speaking with a broad brushstroke, I think the majority of Americans are fiscally responsible and socially accepting. Now, that's with a broad brushstroke. I'm in that category. I think the majority of Americans are in that category. I think that really kind of represents the Libertarian Party, the notion of being more liberal than Obama on many issues, social issues, more conservative than Romney on many issues, fiscal issues.
How do you define the military is part of the commons? Nobody's talking about privatizing the military. The police departments, the fire departments, typically. Should our public education be considered part of the commons, or should it be open to corporate takeover? Should our, more than half of the electricity that's generated in this country is generated by public utilities? Should they be privatized? Where are the boundary points for the commons? Those things that are the appropriate purview of government.
Well, as governor of New Mexico, I always said that government should be about best product, best service at the lowest price. And so wherever privatization was able to come in and provide a better product, a better service at a lower price, I was always for it. I was probably more outspoken than any governor in the country regarding school choice, believing that to improve education, we should bring competition to public education. And I still believe that. What should the role be of the federal government when it comes to education? I think it would be getting out of education completely. Established in 1979 under Jimmy Carter, I don't think there's been anything value added when it comes to education since 1979. And another thing, people don't recognize that federal government gives each state about 11 cents out of every school dollar that every state spends. They give Illinois 11 cents and they say, you have to do A, B, C, D. But to do A, B, C, D, it costs Illinois 16 cents to deliver on A, B, C, D. So it's really a negative to take federal money. If you just got the federal government out of education, gave it up to the states, 50 laboratories of innovation and best practice, I think that's exactly what you would have. You'd have some fabulous success that would get emulated. You'd also have some horrible failure that would get avoided, but 50 states working on that kind of model, I think creates a better model. Government has a fundamental role, in my opinion, to protect you and I against individuals, groups, corporations that would do us harm. And as a nation...
Governor, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we are out of time. We wish you the best luck tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming, Gary, and we're all here again to unite and find a lot of things in common as well tonight, is what we'll sense in discussion.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for your thoughts.
I think one of the interesting things that has been brought up is when Thom brought up the idea of commons, and there's a little bit of hypocrisy almost between the political parties. We have this idea that it is okay to make education something that's part of everybody's social responsibility, yet at the same time we look at the privatization of prison systems, for example, and we have one party who thinks, well, we need to get out of education, make that private, yet at the same time privatize or deregulate the prison system and make that private. So you have a conflict of interest in a sense between a lot of these parties. Conservatives tend to...
I like to keep it a little more simple, though. You know, if we transition back to the origins of the Constitution, if we cut back government sufficient, we're going to find a lot of things in common, focusing more on ending the Federal Reserve, saying no to the Patriot Act, saying no to SOPA, no to the NDAA. I think under an efficient government, maybe we could have great health care for everyone. I don't know. That's for people to decide on their own, and that's what we're planning on doing here at Free and Equal, uniting everybody. Jill Stein,
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And I introduced you before. I'll do it again briefly. You're a mother, physician, long list here, a longtime teacher of internal medicine, pioneering environmental health advocate, and the Green Party nominee for president. Her your vice presidential running mate, that is it Sherry Honkala?
Sherry Honkala. That's right.
I wanted to pronounce that right. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
Wow, you've been in the news lately.
In the last 24 hours, I've been in Seattle, San Francisco, Dallas, and Chicago.
Oh, welcome.
And two red eyes.
Dr. Stein, we were talking before about the women's movement, suffrage movement, really, abolition, ideas put forth by third-party candidates. And many of the ideas that were put forth by third-party candidates found their way into the New Deal. You are putting forth a Green New Deal. Could you tell us a little bit about that, and maybe also let us know how it felt like to get arrested, to get into when you attempted to become part of the Commission on Presidential Debates, just to appear there.
Thank you. Both really important issues. And so, you know, the Green New Deal is a emergency plan to solve two really critical problems that the American people are facing, and which the Democrats and Republicans have done virtually nothing about. It creates 25 million jobs, it puts an end to unemployment, and it jumpstarts the green economy. And that green economy can put a halt to climate change, and it makes wars for oil obsolete, which is a critical part of how we can fund this Green New Deal, which would cost about the cost of the first stimulus package of 2009, around $600 billion or so. And it basically puts resources in the hands of communities so they can create the jobs they need to become sustainable, ecologically, socially, and economically. The spectrum of green jobs, clean renewable energy, healthy local food production, public transportation, plus the jobs that meet our social needs, hiring back the teachers, childcare after school, affordable housing construction, things like that. So it's a win-win for jobs, for the economy, but also for ending climate change and for allowing us to bring back hundreds of billions of dollars from those wars for oil, which the Green New Deal makes unnecessary. And the arrest question was quite shocking as an experience. My running mate and I went into Hofstra University attempting to just get onto the grounds and to be able to go in and challenge the Commission on Presidential Debates. And we were not allowed even to come in, and we were arrested, put in tight plastic restraints, and then taken to a dark site, which no one was supposed to know about. And in fact, when our team found us there, the security officers were really alarmed and actually rather hostile that they had been found out. And they wanted to know what was our intelligence that had enabled us to locate their dark site, because it was supposed to be top secret. But there we were for 8 hours, the two of us, very scary, big burly grandmothers, tightly handcuffed and handcuffed to chairs. It was such a case of overkill, and also a case of our tax dollars hard at work. There was a facility decked out for the arrest of hundreds of people, and with 16 officers who all just stood around and watched my running mate and I handcuffed to chairs for 8 hours.
Trying to get on the grounds of the Commission on Presidential
Debates into a public event, which is supposed to be, it masquerades as being the Commission on Presidential Debates. You would think that the public would have something to do with this, and that candidates who are on the ballot for 85% of voters, who basically met the criterion of the League of Women Voters for participating in a public debate, you'd think that that's what it's supposed to be about, but
I
the commission is extremely misleading.
I think what's happened to you, ma'am, is symbolic, though, of this distrust that the voters have with their government. So going to your new Green Deal, would that be something that would be allocated solely from a federal level, or would you seek to more spread it out amongst the states?
Exactly.
We've got 1 minute left here, Jill.
Great, and that's a very important question because it's not a top-down, Washington-based cookie-cutter program. Rather, the funding would be provided nationally, but then distributed to local communities so they can decide through an inclusive and participatory process what kinds of jobs are the priority for that community.
Oh, great, Jill. It's so great to have you. And I know we didn't get into ballot access barriers. I know Ben Mansky, your campaign manager, has been quite an uphill battle there with you and Gary Johnson, all these candidates.
And the way it works, they keep you busy running in circles for the first 80% of your campaign. So it's only in the last few weeks that we were able to get the word out. But it was extremely uplifting and affirming of our shared values. That word about the campaign has gotten out, it has spread. It's been like giving out candy at Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa, all rolled into one, to tell people they have an independent voice in this election.
We're all wrapped up, and hence the ballot access barriers have created the grand illusion, creation in 1890, Australian ballots. And so thank you so much, Jill, for coming, and I'll see you on stage with Larry King.
Thank you all so much.
Looking forward
Best of
to
luck
it.
tonight.
Thanks so much. Thank you all for being
you.
here.
We're pretty sure you won't be arrested this evening.
I'm looking for the undercover agents right now.
You'll just be hugged and loved and thanked. Thank you, Jill.
Thanks so much.
It's so refreshing to see so many different voices represented, yet at the same time there's this underlying issue where really people are recognizing, even if you don't agree with all of these candidates on the issues, you agree with that there should be a place for their voices to be heard. And that's what's so wonderful about what we're seeing tonight in this debate.
Right, we're creating our own media tonight.
Yes.
I mean,
Place of ideas.
until we shine a light on the money in media, the money in politics, Democrats and Republicans alike. I mean, we have all these problems, the closed debates, commission committing a fraud on the voters. Until we address the money and the people stand up and run for office. I mean, I ran for office in 2010, 28 years of age, Secretary of State in California. Everybody out there can do it for 2014, those state, federal, but in any case, that's the key. Virgil Goode, great to have you. Thank you. I know you drove in from Wisconsin today, I think?
That's right.
Oh, well, welcome. I'd like to introduce you. We have Virgil Goode, Jr. He's a former member of the U.S. House of Representatives and the Constitution Party nominee for president. Your vice presidential running mate is Jim Clymer, and you've been elected official for 35 years, I believe. And
Right. I was in the Virginia State Senate from 1973 till 1997. And then in Congress from 97 to January 2009.
well, welcome. Any questions?
Yes, well, you were part of one of the two major parties, right? And you've left to become the Constitution Party nominee, a third party that you're on the ballot, and more than 25% of the public is going to have a chance to vote for you, much more than that when you write it in.
More than that. Well, no, I'm on the ballot on the line with Democrats and Republicans in over half the states, and then others that have write-in ballots, we're right on 40. Like North Carolina, I'm the only write-in candidate.
So what
In
difficulties?
North Carolina, because we had to get the same way in Texas, same way in Illinois.
Right. So what difficulties did you find with the electoral process, and how would you fix our broken electoral system, given that you've experienced a candidacy in the two major parties and now as a third party
Really,
candidate?
a presidential campaign is 50 state campaigns. I think you need grassroots efforts in states such as Oklahoma, which have huge ballot signature requirements, same way in California. It would make it more fair and equal, if you would, to borrow the theme of tonight's debate. If you give more opportunity for greater views, and that would enhance democracy.
Would you consider federalizing a one uniform ballot access standard for federal candidates?
Flat filing fee?
It's the federal government should work with the states, but it's really we are a federal system of 50 states, and you're going to have. I would not be in favor. Although now there was legislation introduced in Congress several years ago that Ron Paul had it, that had certain features in it. But if you're a true constitutionalist like Ron is, that's you're infringing on an area that's under state jurisdiction.
If you believe that the ballot process, the electoral process is part of the commons, it's one of the things that government appropriately should do, then what do we do about it being hijacked and privatized, specifically with the Commission on Presidential Elections, well, the super PACs, and the electronic voting machines, what Thomas Paine referred to as the beating heart of democracy, our ballot. It's all been privatized.
Right, you're exactly right. Voting machines, that was about a $600 billion cost. There were very few people in Congress that voted against spending billions for voting machines for the federal portion. The states and localities had to come up with more billions. I was one that voted against that. It was a big overreaction to Florida.
Interesting.
But and the election commissions that you mentioned, they are too dominated just by the major parties. The Presidential Debate Commission is.
Right.
And I believe that there'll probably be some lawsuits on that. Will it be successful? I don't know.
Green Party actually recently filed a lawsuit. So
Y'all did?
The Green Party, Jill Stein, I urge all the parties to publicize, come together. The money in the presidential commission is actually free and equal. We're going to be releasing that whole list. It's already in the works.
How is the presidential commission funded? No taxpayer money. Is it for the debate?
Warren Buffett is one of the people there.
He's got an agenda. He wants.
Anheuser-Busch is also a big
General
player.
Motors, AT&T, Marriott. I'm glad we didn't hold the debate at the Marriott.
So it's been privatized.
Essentially, it's run.
It's not a governmental commission. It's a private entity with corporate funding.
Is this something you think should be taken over by the government? That this should be the role of government to make sure that elections are fair and equal, and that the votes aren't being counted by a private corporation?
You know, you get into how much taxpayer money should be, and we got to balance the budget.
Right.
So I'm not going to sit here and say that, well, we should appropriate this to solve a problem. That's exactly what they did with the electronic voting machines, the computerized voting. Go ahead. I think it started out about like $3 billion and ended up close to $10 billion federal dollars by the time it got through. And then that doesn't include, as I said, the local and state money. So I'm not willing to sit here and say I want the federal government to control the debates. I think having an alternative forum like this with the coverage that's here tonight is sending a message to Anheuser-Busch and all those other corporate sponsors. Look, you may not be on the right team.
Well, we're wrapped up here. That's a good note to end on.
Much.
And everybody here tonight's on the right team, I feel. I can't speak for all of you, but